How's it going, everybody? I am ZBilbs and I am back here with another metal video. Today I've got a very special one for all of y'all because the end of the year is upon us, and that means that it's time to look back at the best metal albums of the year. Now if you want to skip right into the video, then click on this timestamp right here or go to this time. But I've got a few things to say beforehand, so if you want to just get to the video, then skip to then. I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. It's been over a month, I think almost even 2 months since my last video. I'm sorry, I've been super busy with the end of the semester, finals, wrapping up everything, but now I'm officially on Christmas vacation, which means that I should have a nice string of content for y'all over the next couple of weeks, so be looking forward to that. Obviously, I'm gonna be, some videos you can look forward to. This one, I'm gonna rank my favorite songs of the year. I'm gonna do some disappointing albums. I'm gonna do some more top 20 songs. So comment below other videos you want me to do soon here. There's also some new band rankings that I've gone through this year that I haven't gone to yet, that hopefully I will rank some albums there. So that should be fun. Also, this is a top 15 and not a top 10 because it was just so hard to limit it to 10, and instead of just doing like 5 honorable mentions, I wanted to actually rank them as spots. So I'm doing 15 there, and I'm gonna do top 25, add an extra 5 for the songs. I usually do top 20. So that's why that's different. Another thing I wanted to address is that a lot of these albums that are on here are from bands that I have not covered. So a lot of these albums are from bands where this might have been the first album I've heard from them, or one of the first. I haven't heard a lot of these. So as you might know, I'm very new to metal in general. So I think this is only like my second year of listening to metal, so my opinions likely will vary a lot from yours. Because I'm new to a lot of these bands, I might have a better or worse appreciation than a lot of you. And then the last thing to note is that if you know me, my favorite metal subgenre is definitely power metal. So that is definitely a bias going in. You're going to see a lot of power metal. You're going to see a lot of power metal adjacent albums there. So if you're not going to see any, death metal, black metal, any of like the super like more extreme metal. There are some extreme-ish metal stuff that I'm dabbling with these days, but mostly you're gonna see more mainstream albums. There's not too many like super obscure bands, so I'd recommend go check out Quest for Metal, Metal Trenches, Metal Meltdown, all those guys if you want a little more like behind the scenes, a little more death metal stuff. Obviously it's not only going to be power metal, but it is going to be largely that stuff. But that's enough rambling for now. Let's just get into my rankings here. And before I get going, I am going to include one honorable mention, just because I wanted to include this album somehow. It just didn't quite make it into the top 16, and that is Animals as Leaders with Parrhesia. Now, this is my first Animals as Leaders album that I've listened to, and it's very interesting. I'm not huge into like gent stuff, but just the technicality on this album is just really impressive. These are obviously very talented guys. I don't know where this album stacks with all the other stuff because this is the first one I listened to, but this is a really fun listen, and it missed out on my list just by a bit. So now let's get on to my actual list, and starting out at number 15, I've got Korn with Requiem. Now, it seems from the buzz I've seen online, this one seems to kind of be like a mid overall when it comes to Korn stuff. I think Metal Meltdown maybe even put this as one of his least favorite of the years, whereas other guys, I think Metal Trenches said it was like a pretty solid overall, so it's got pretty mixed reviews. Now, I've heard a handful of Korn songs before going into this album, so I was familiar, but I'd never just dove through like an entire Korn album. But overall, this was a pretty solid album. It wasn't spectacular, but there were some pretty solid tracks in there. It was pretty consistent. Some of my favorites, Forgotten was a good opener. Let the Dark Do the Rest was decent. Start the Healing was probably my favorite from the album. Other solid ones like Penance to Sorrow, My Confession, Worst is on Its Way. There were only a handful of tracks that were worth skipping. There weren't necessarily like any super high highs. You're not going to see any Korn songs on my favorite songs of the year list, but overall, this was just a really just fun, well done album, and it definitely deserves my 15th spot. Moving on to number 14, this is, I suppose, is my one sort of deep cut album of the one band that probably very few people know here, and that is going to be Without Waves with Comedian. Now, I wouldn't have even heard of this band ever if I hadn't, listened to Metal Trenches like I do. And this is actually one of his favorite albums of the year. And I heard him just talk about this one, and it intrigued me just by kind of the cover alone. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I'll check it out. And, metalcore isn't really my thing. This is like a progressive metalcore album. But there's just some really, really interesting stuff. Just these guys, they're incredibly talented. The difference in the sound here is just super fascinating. Like the first half of the album isn't really my thing because it's a lot more of that deep, intense, just screamy, growly stuff. But the second half is just a beautiful, beautiful mix of just clean, fun instrumentals, and then a little more of that just metalcore, intensity to it. And there's just a really fun balance. There's a lot of diversity in just the instrumentals. There's like piano, the guitar just sounds fantastic. So just a really good album. Some of my favorites from this one, Slight in Shadows is fantastic. I love that song. Seven is also fantastic. Day 15, Worlds Apart. What was the other one? Sleep Deep. That was also a great one. So yeah, once again, the kind of a deep cut album, but also a very good one, and I highly recommend that you check it out. So that is Comedian at 14. All right, moving on to number 13. Now we're getting into my first power metal of quite a few that I have on this list, and that is Hammerfall with Hammer of Dawn. Now, I've sort of covered this one when I ranked all my Hammerfall albums, and it was somewhere mid on their discography. And after time of letting it soak, I think this has moved up even more. This is a really solid power metal album in general. I think this is one of their best albums in like years. I think Hammerfall, their later stuff, is really kind of mediocre, and I think this one got them back on the right trajectory. It's got some really, really solid songs in there. Hammer of Dawn, Too Old to Die Young, Venerate Me, No Son of Odin. Really, really great songs. Now, why this album isn't higher, I've seen on like best power metals of albums of the year list, people have it like really high, and I wouldn't say it's quite up to those standards, just mostly because I think there's a lot of filler, a lot of just kind of boring, mediocre tracks that bog this one down, but the really good songs in this album hold it up, and so that's why I've got Hammer of Dawn at number 13. Moving on to number 12, I've got another sort of interesting pick, but a very good album, and that is Voivod with Synchro Anarchy. Now, just like Comedian from Without Waves, this is another like very like, I don't know, experimental, interesting type band and an interesting album. It's like technical thrash metal, I think, is their official genre or whatever. And so I was kind of skeptical going into this one. I'd heard some good buzz about it, so I decided to check it out. And I was pleasantly surprised. There was nothing that like knocked my socks off with this one. Obviously, this isn't like my favorite type of genre, but there was a lot of really good stuff in there. Some of my favorite songs, Synchro Anarchy, just the title track, is probably the best on the album. That's fantastic. Paranormalium or something like that. That's a good opener. Planet Eaters is great. Sleeves Off is great. The Quest for Nothing, The World Today, all great songs. There's very few skippable ones. So this is just really interesting, really fun album, and that is coming in at number 12. Moving on to number 11, I have got Ailstorm with Seventh Rum of a Seventh Rum. Now, this is a ridiculous band, and it's a ridiculous album, needless to say, but it's also just incredibly fun. I know a lot of people like to harp on Ailstorm for just being too ridiculous, just too silly to take seriously, and, that's fair, but they're also a heck of a lot of fun. They're pirate metal, they're kind of like, I guess a bit more specific section of like power metal, but because they're power metal, I tend to favor them. I'm not saying I love every power metal band. Look at my or album. Look at my most disappointed albums of the year. I'll have a couple of those on there. But getting back on topic, Ailstorm. This is just a really fun album. Once again, I hadn't heard any Ailstorm before, except for a few songs here and there. But this was a really, this was really good. Some of the better songs, Magellan's Expedition or Magellan's Expedition, I don't know. The Battle of Cape Fear River, Party is ridiculous, but it's funny. Seventh Rum of a Seventh Rum, great title track, super fun. Bite the Hook That Feeds, Wooden Leg Part 3. And then there's some where they're like kind of fun, but they're just so unbelievably ridiculous that I couldn't get into it, like Cannonball. That one is just like, just look up the lyrics and you'll understand why that one's like, ooh. But overall, I mean, there's a handful of kind of meh songs. It's a little over the top at times, but this album is just a ton of fun. So that's what I've got coming in at number 11. But now we're getting into the real big dogs. I'm not saying the other ones aren't, but top 10, big deal. So coming in at number 10, I have The Who with Rumble of Thunder. Now, obviously, this is The Who, as in the Mongolian folk metal band. And this is just an excellent band. I have heard these guys before. The Garrig is an excellent album. If you like folk metal, I'm sure you've already heard of The Who. But once again, these guys just do a great job of taking, traditional Mongolian vocals, the throat singing, the instrumentals, and then just meshing it beautifully with just a nice, fun metal sound. And this is just, once again, like the Garrig, this is a great album. I don't think it's quite as good as the Garrig, but it is still pretty solid. Some better songs on this one, Black Thunder is great. This is Mongol, Shihi Hutu, Mother Earth, or Mother Nature. There's some like hard ones to pronounce, like B Bailey or something like that. So a really good, consistent album. There's not too many like super high of high songs like the Garrig has. But overall, it's really consistent. It's The Who being The Who. So great album, and that's what's coming in at number 10. Moving on to number 9, I've got an album for a band that hopefully I should be covering all of their albums within the next month or two, I don't know. But I have got Candlemass with Sweet Evil Sun. I've been getting into Candlemass, and this is an excellent album of theirs for sure. Obviously, this is the second one where they had their returning original singer from Epicus Doomicus Metallicus, and it's a freaking great album. I've heard them, people either like seem to like love it, like Sea of Tranquility, or other people are like, the production, it's too clean, it's not doomy enough, and I guess I get that, but I thought it was great despite the production. And it's just got some really awesome songs on it. Sweet Evil Sun, the title track, is fantastic. Devil Voodoo is probably my second favorite on there. Crucified is excellent. There are other great ones like When Death Sighs, Scandinavian Gods, Angel Battle. So once again, a very good, consistent album. Very few skippable tracks on there. And if you like doom metal, this is an absolute must listen to album. So that is Sweet Evil Sun coming in at number 9. Moving on to number 8. Once again, we have another power metal-esque album, but not quite. And I've got Epica with the Alchemy Project. So technically this is symphonic metal, but offshoot of power metal, so close enough. But I heard Epica live for the first time when I went to the Sabaton concert. They opened for them, and they were very fun there. And this is, it's another good Epica album. I haven't heard all of the Epic albums. I've heard a handful of their songs, but this was really freaking good. Now, I don't know if this technically counts as like a legit Epica album because it's more of just a collaboration album. So I don't know if people really count it as like a mainline Epica album or like a spin-off album, but nonetheless, this is still a very good album. Some of the better songs on there, The Great Tribulation, a nice mix of death metal and symphonic metal, got Flesh God Apocalypse on there. The final lullaby is fantastic. My favorite is Sirens of Blood and Water is just beautiful. You got like the Epica singer, I forgot her name, and then like two other female singers, and it's just majestic. It's barely metal, but it's still a freaking great song anyways. The Minor is also spectacular. This one would be higher, but it's a very interesting mix of, symphonic metal, and then there's a lot of like more intense extreme metal, like death metal stuff. And so one of the other, I forgot the other like death metal band who's on here. There's like two just straight up death metal songs, and then because I'm not the hugest death metal fan, those ones didn't quite do it for me. The Great Tribulation is more of a mix, so I was more down with that one a little bit more. But either way, it's a short album, or short-ish. It's a sweet album, great songs on there. So that's what I've got, Epica with the Alchemy Project, coming in at number 8. Moving on to number 7, this one's going to be a little controversial because I've got Patient number 9. Ozzy Osbourne's new album. I did a review of this one, and honestly, this one's even improved since I reviewed it, not improved it. Now, this has come out to very, very mixed reviews. Generally people are like, oh yeah, it's not horrible for how old Ozzy is, but it's not good by any means. And I would say, honestly, it's one of the better Ozzy albums in a long time. I would even say, I think I put it like halfway through. I might even put it up a few spots if I ranked Ozzy albums again, because the songs on here, they're just super consistent, super fun. There's a lot of talent in there. Obviously, I've already said what I think of the songs, but that still stands. Patient number 9 is fantastic. Parasite is fantastic. One of Those Days. You've got Degradation Rules. You've got Nothing Feels Right. You've got Mr. Darkness, which is all right. I'm 1,000 Shades. I'm definitely missing a couple other solid ones, but just a lot of great songs. Amazing talent around Ozzy here. Frickin' Zakk Wylde, Tony Iommi, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, like, you name it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's too much. It's a bit of a mess. It's a bit all over the place, but maybe I think it's a whole lot of fun. I think it's a great album. So that's what I've got. Patient number 9 coming in at number 7. Moving on to number 6. Another controversial one because I have got The End So Far, Slipknot's brand new album. And now I know this one among Slipknot fans has been incredibly, incredibly divisive. And if you've seen my review and seen my Slipknot albums ranked, you'll know that I absolutely love this album. This is my favorite Slipknot album, probably because this is like the first Slipknot songs I ever really, really got into were from this album. Yen is spectacular. You're absolutely going to see that on my top 25 songs list. And I don't know, this album, it's got a handful of lame skippable songs, like What Are Acidic and Heirloom, like those are just trash. But yeah, there's just so many good songs in this album. Obviously, I already mentioned Yen is my favorite. The Dying Song, you've got Desaad, Adderall is excellent opener, Warranty, Hive Mind, whatever the last one is called is also excellent. It's like the farewell one or something. I'll put it right there. But yeah, this is just, I really dug this album. I know a lot of people don't like it, and whatever, I thought it was great. So that's what I've got, The End So Far, coming in at number 6. Moving on to number 5. And also, quick thing here, you're probably hearing a lot of background noise in this. I'm sorry, I'm home for the holidays and my family is everywhere, but this is the best I can do. Number 5, I've got Ghost with Impera. I did a review for this one, so you already know that I really like this album. So I won't beat a dead horse here, but I love Ghost, and this is also a fantastic album. Once again, they're just Ghost is such a unique band. I wish they would be getting a little bit heavier, but despite that, what they're doing here is just still amazing. Respite on the Spitalfields is my favorite on the album. It's fantastic. Spillways, Hunter's Moon, Call Me Little Sunshine, frickin' Griftwood, Watcher in the Sky, Darkness at the Heart of My Love. It's consistent. It's packed with quality songs. Not going to even say much more. This is a great album. I'm surprised it didn't come much higher, but there were a couple surprises later in the year that were just great. Like this next one. Well, it wasn't later in the year, but I listened to it later in the year. Number 4, and that is Zeit from Rammstein, or Rammstein, I don't know how you pronounce it. But this was the first Rammstein album that I had listened all the way through, and it was really freaking great. While there wasn't any songs where I was like, oh yeah, this is like a top tier song or anything, this is just one of the most consistent albums. There wasn't a single bad song on this album, or skippable song at least. And so, yeah, that already just shows that it's a freaking great album. Some of my favorites from here, Zeit, the title track, is probably my best, or the best. Lügen, Zigzag, Okay, Angst. There's some really weird ones in there, like Dicke Titten. But, I mean, a lot of people don't like Rammstein because they're super, like, weird and profane and goofy. But, I mean, the fact that I can't understand German, obviously, I know what Dicke Titten probably means. But it's still very fun. So yeah, Du is an excellent closer. Giftig, Armee der Tristen. I mean, all of them are great. This is just a super consistent, super fun album. Rammstein is just a great band. So that's what I've got Zeit in at number 4. Now moving on to my top 3. This is where it gets really hard, and I'll tell you already, this top 3 is just the battle of the power metal bands. Honestly, it really surprised me, the order I ended up going with these top 3, because I think they're all so close and all so good. But yeah, without further ado, let's get going. At number 3, I have The God Machine by Blind Guardian. This is fantastic. I've heard a little bit of Blind Guardian before this album came out, and I know they're like the biggest power metal band like ever, even bigger than like Halloween for most people. But I've never been able to quite get into them because Hansi, their singer, there's something about his vocals that just, I don't know, I just didn't enjoy. So going into this album, I didn't have very high expectations, but honestly, his vocals have grown on me so much, and his vocals in this album are absolutely spectacular. This album has the best freaking vocals of any album of the year, hands down. Maybe some of the best I've ever even heard. He's just a spectacular singer. And he just knows how to crank out a powerful chorus. And there are just so many just heavy, fun, intense, powerful songs in here that I was shocked how much I ended up liking this album, because this album is honestly a masterpiece. Some of the best: Deliver Us from Evil, masterpiece; Damnation, masterpiece; Secrets of the American Gods, masterpiece; Blood of the Elves, masterpiece. So it's got 4 freaking masterpiece songs in there. Other great ones: Life Beyond the Spheres is excellent. Let It Be No More. Violent Shadows is good, but not great. The only reason this one didn't get much higher is it's also got 2 sort of songs in there. Architects of Doom and Destiny, I didn't much care for. If this album, if those 2 songs were even like remotely all right, this could have gotten 2 or 1 like so easily, because it's got some of the best songs of the entire year, and it's just incredibly well made. Probably it's going to be most people's favorite power metal album of the year. It probably objectively is the best power metal album of the year, I've got a little bit of bias for at least one of them that's coming up. But either way, it's still a fantastic album. And so that is Blind Guardian with the God Machine at number 3. Moving on to number 2. You know it. It's The War to End All Wars by Sabaton. Now, if you know me, you know that Sabaton is my absolute favorite band ever. They're really the band that has gotten me into metal and into power metal. They're my first metal concert ever. I went to them this year, and they were spectacular. And up until actually yesterday, this would have been my number 1 pick. But when I went through and I listened through a lot of the albums to get my last thoughts, another one just squeaked by this one somehow. But yeah, I mean, not somehow, it's spectacular. But this is also just, it's an amazing album. It's Sabaton. This probably won't be on anyone else's list because for me, it's obviously a huge bias because I love Sabaton so much, but this is also a great album, I think, honestly, just objectively. Stormtroopers, Dreadnought, Lady of the Dark, Christmas Truce, frickin' Soldier of Heaven, Hellfighters, like, no bad songs on this album, except for, like, the sort of intro and outro songs, which are more just of, like, sort of history lessons that they weaved some, like, actual music stuff into. So if they could have cut those, man, this would have been number 1. But still, this is a spectacular album. If you don't like Sabaton, then, you know, whatever. But that is number 2, The War to End All Wars. And number 1, I have got Stratovarius with Survive. Now, once again, if you would have asked me to rank this yesterday, this would have been 4 or 5. But I re-listened to it, and I'm like, holy crap, this album actually freaking kicks major ass. Like, I mean, this is the first Stratovarius album I've listened to. Honestly, the first time I've ever listened to Stratovarius. So maybe if I've heard some of their older, better stuff, I wouldn't like this one so much. But, you know, a lot of criticisms that, like, Sabaton or power metal bands have is that a lot of their songs just sound the same. It's all just similar stuff. And for me, I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. But if a band gets a formula and they get it right, and especially with power metal, it can just make just for such a great album with just, you know, make it with some small variations of just a winning formula, and it's just, it's fantastic. It might not be like technically the most objectively good proper style of music, but it's just amazingly fun. Sabaton obviously has an amazing winning formula that they just do well. And from what I've heard from Stratovarius from this album, they also do it very, very well. All of these songs in here, there's a very, obviously, you know, similar style to all of them, but there's just enough variation and just enough, you know, making each song individually interesting that it's just, there's just winner after winner after winner for all of these songs. Some of the best: Survive, Demand, Broken, We Are Not Alone, Glory Days, World on Fire, Breakaway, Before the Fall. There's only like 2 songs in here that I don't love. The last one, which is like Road of Thunder or something, and Firefly. But once again, there's 11 songs on this album. It is so hard to have a long 11-song album like that and have almost all of them be absolute bangers like this album is. Like, all of the songs that I listen, not only are they just like good songs, they're all great songs. These are all just, once again, just power metal masterpieces. They're a song that you pop in and it's just, they go so freaking hard. Every single one is just an absolute jam. Once again, I'd say technically, in all like objective quality, maybe not as good as another one like the God Machine, but when it comes to just pure essence of just raw, awesome, fun, fast-paced power metal, this is absolutely the best album of the year, and it is, at least as of right now, my favorite album of the year. So that is Stratovarius's Survive. Obviously, I'm very excited to get into Stratovarius and Blind Guardian. I haven't gotten to their albums. Definitely when it comes in 2023, I'm going through both of those bands, and I can already tell they're gonna be one of my favorite bands of all time if these albums have anything to say about it. But that is my list. So please comment below, what are your favorite metal albums of the year? What did you think of my list? Which albums did you agree with? Which of them did you not agree with? Please comment below any videos you'd like to see in the future. I've got more coming out soon, but that is all I've got for you today, so I will see you later.